All right, let's go for a drive. Okay, so this is my review of this 2016 Mazda MX-5 Grand Touring. This is a two-door, two-seat roadster, which is good. It has an automatic transmission, which is bad. It has blind spot monitoring, which is good, but an overactive lane departure alert system, which is bad. It is powered by a 2-liter engine with 155 horsepower, which is okay. The drive is sent to those wheels, which is good. For some reason, the previous owner of this car decided to put this weird beige aftermarket leather in it, which is bad. Perhaps because of this, he put just a little over 2,000 miles on it in 42 months of ownership, which is good for the next owner. Anyway, let's put some more miles on it. Alright, so driving the Mazda MX-5. Now I gotta be honest, the footage that you're watching here was filmed about a month ago, before the world changed drastically. And I filmed the footage and I plan to do the voiceover later, making a witty comparison between a British sports car and dating a stripper. Because, you know, the stripper's beautiful and exotic, but in a sort of flawed way, and all your friends are sort of jealous, and eventually they're both going to have a catastrophic meltdown, and the best you can hope for is to be thrown clear when it occurs. But, you know, the world's changed a little bit, and me going off on a rant about how you should buy a Miata because you don't need to go to Costco is a little funny right now, because as I record this, it's March 27th, and this isn't going to go online for probably about 10 days, because that's how video production works, for the most part, when you're doing a video like this. You record it first, and then eventually it gets uploaded, and sometimes that happens in phases. And normally that's fine because the world doesn't change that much in 10 or 20 days, but in 10 or 20 days now, who knows? The world can change drastically and amazingly. But let's get back to the Mazda MX-5, or the Miata as I prefer to call it. Technically this is not a Miata, it's an MX-5. I just think Miata is a better name. Should you buy one of these cars? Give it a review. Okay. So the way this car drives is very nice and very engaging. This was the first time I had driven an ND Miata, which is the 4th generation. I've never driven an original one, the NA. I don't even think I could fit in that little beautiful pop-eyed little car. But I have driven a couple of the 2nd generations, the NBs, and I've including a lightly modified Mazda Speed Turbo, which was one of the best driver's cars I've ever been in. And I've driven an NC, and as it is with automobiles, as new generations come out, they get bigger, they get heavier, and they kind of get floppier. And really with this ND Miata, I was quite surprised the first time I drove it, and I drove it a few times. I probably put about 40 miles on that car, which was significant, seeing as how it only had, you know, like 2,100 miles when the guy had traded it in. The body roll surprised me. It had direct steering, it had good handling, it had predictable handling, but I wouldn't call it flat. It did have some body roll. Now the ride was a little bit more compliant than I would have expected as well. That's kind of the trade-off. But with an MX-5, I was expecting it to handle a little bit better. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it handled poorly, because it certainly didn't. But it wasn't as sharp as I expected it to be. But it was a nice car. It was a fun car. It was a car that put me in a good mood. I love convertibles. I love putting the top down. I just think it's the best, you know, with the fresh air and the sunshine and everything like that. A lot of that's going to depend on the weather, the area that you live in, you know, if a convertible makes sense for you. But I'm lucky enough, I suppose, to live in Southern California where convertibles make a lot of sense. So I really did love driving the car. It just surprised me that it felt like it was leaning a little bit more towards the grand touring side of the equation as opposed to the sports car side, and maybe that's because this particular one was the Grand Touring model. One thing that really annoyed me on this car that I would avoid if I were you looking to buy one is the lane departure warning system. I felt like it was just overactive, and despite the more body roll than I expected in turns, the steering's still very quick. So you could get close to a line pretty easily, and it seemed to me that the lane departure warning, you didn't have to go over the line for it to go off. So I found that feature to be very annoying. That's something that I would definitely have to disable if it were my car. And if I were going to buy one, it's an option that I would avoid completely if I could. So that was probably the biggest annoyance that I found with the car. But my message to you about the car is this, and I've been lucky enough to have a couple of fun cars in my day. I had an old Saab 900 turbo convertible for a long time, which I loved. I had a Mustang GT for about a year, which I loved. WRX STI, fantastic car. So this is my message to you, and I think it's pertinent for the times that we live in, if you've always wanted a car like this, a little roadster, a little sports car, maybe you've always wanted an MX-5 specifically, maybe you've always wanted one of those old British sports cars like an MG or a Triumph or something like that, but you just don't want something that old that's going to have that many problems. You know what? A Miata, an MX-5 is a real solid replacement for something like that. And if you've never had one and you've always wanted one and you have the opportunity to get one, get it. Because none of us ever really know how much time we have left. None of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, if I've learned anything in the last 2-3 weeks, I'm recording this on March 27th, 2020, and it won't go online for probably 10 days or 2 weeks or something. So who even knows? Who even knows what will be by that time? But if you've got the chance to get something that you've always wanted, and it's not going to ruin you financially or cause you to be delinquent in regards to your other financial commitments, do it. Just do it. Enjoy it. Have a good time. Enjoy your life. Because that's all we can do. So, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.
Wait, if I'm on fire, how am I so deep in love? When I dream of dying, I never feel so loved. Wait, if I'm on fire, how am I so deep in love? When I dream of dying, I never be too love.